Hello and welcome to Balanced Existence. If it's your first time, welcome. I trust that there's a message here for you. And thank you to all the subscribers who have recently joined. I know we're just starting out building this community, but I'm so excited to see the collective come together on this channel. So welcome and thank you so much for being here. Today, I want to speak on emotional needs, emotional growth, and this is such a huge part of the collective's spiritual and healing journey. And so I want to pull some tarot cards and oracle cards and just open ourselves up to the guidance of our angels and spirit guides in terms of anything that we need to know at this time and anything that can help us progress along this evolution of our soul that we're on. And I really do believe that emotions are the language of our soul, heart-aligned emotions at least, which I spoke about in the previous reading. So I definitely recommend checking that out if this is a topic that resonates for you. But the way we feel is not something that can be rationally explained all the time. And yet it is still essential and incredibly valuable to understand ourselves, to understand the trauma we seek to heal, to understand our general feelings within our body. And it's all on this journey of knowing yourself to the deepest level that you can possibly reach in this lifetime. And so our emotions are crucial to our sense of well-being, which is why it's so important to be able to recognize, acknowledge, and understand our emotions as they surface, as we experience them, and to really seek to investigate and dive deep into their origins and their meanings and the messages that are behind them. And there is an aspect of surrender that is required when dealing with our emotions, because our emotions will arise during inconvenient times. And when you have systems in place, meaning the way that you process and manage your emotions and the way that you prioritize the nurturing of your emotional health, this is something that can take at times a significant energetic output. In other words, it requires you to divert your energy towards this moment, which can be quite spontaneous or sporadic depending on your emotional habits or your overall emotional state or stability. It's almost like when you have a child or even a pet that's crying for attention or crying to be fed, and it requires you to stop what you're doing and tend to that need. And so having systems in place and having those habits of how you respond to your emotions is crucial to build and establish the foundations of not just having permanent emotional stability or never having emotional reactions ever again, but a foundation that's going to allow you to, through this human experience and the natural, inevitable arise of emotions and inevitable triggers and emotional responses or reactions that are going to be experienced by you, to have that system in place for you to process it and know that there is some value out of it. There's, as we say a lot on this channel, our triggers are a gift. So when you're being faced with a difficult and maybe seemingly a burden of an emotion, to remember that this is a message from your soul and there is something under it all that is of value to you and your growth. Another reason surrender is so incredibly important and valuable on this journey as it relates to our emotional growth and healing is that our emotions will bring to us information about what is bothering you, what needs to change, what is draining you, what is not fulfilling you. And often, of course, when we speak about emotional healing and somatic work, we're typically dealing with what we consider, at least in the egoic categorizations and labels, to be negative emotions. But of course, positive emotions are also valuable in the sense that when something brings you a lot of joy or makes you excited, that's also incredibly valuable information as to what feeds your soul and what nourishes your soul and what is fulfilling you. But of course, many people in the collective, and especially in the spiritual community, we talk about shadow work more than we talk about light work. And I don't want to discount light work because that's incredibly important and helpful. But a lot of our healing lies within the shadow work. And so that's why a lot of attention is given to shadow work. And a lot of the emotions that we speak on are those that are more negative, such as fear or sadness or anger or shame, things like this. So when you are bothered by something that maybe you wouldn't have expected to be bothered by, that's also an incredibly valuable gift of information that can be investigated further and show you and tell you something about yourself. And I'm pulling the oracle card, Make a Decision, which is so fitting. And right off the bat, I'm getting the importance of these habits and these systems that I'm speaking of. It really does come down to the choices, the decision that we make when we're faced with a emotional response, or when we're faced with the need to pause what we're doing and really tend to some kind of emotional experience. And Spirit wants to inform you of this perspective that will really help you going forward, which is that your angels, your guides, the universe is always ready to support your desires and your manifestations. And your emotions are the stepping stones to get you there. So think of it as when you have an emotional reaction to something, when you make that decision to pause and reflect and dig deep and do that inner work to determine where it's coming from and what needs to be released in that moment. Because a lot of the emotions are coming from some background or history of some past experience or trauma or some limiting belief that was established during childhood, things like that. And so most of this emotional processing is requiring us to release some kind of blockage. When you make that decision to do that work, you are taking a step onto that stepping stone. And that path of stepping stones is leading you to your manifestation. And so that's again why I want us to see emotional reactions and triggers and the at times heavy work that needs to be done to heal and release that which needs to be healed and released. I want us to see that as a gift, as a way to get closer to living in that higher timeline, living as our higher self, where we feel more lighthearted, we feel lighter. We quite literally invite more light into our body, our soul. We bring light to the shadow. And so, of course, we want to achieve that kind of being, that kind of existence. And so the way to bring that light in is through experiencing the shadow, through experiencing the emotional reaction, and then that's the opportunity to bring light to it. You know, you can read the books, you can meditate, and that's all incredibly valuable on your spiritual journey. But it's when we actually go out into the field, right? Like out into real life, and we have the experiences that we really make those significant steps forward towards releasing those blockages. So Spirit wants to remind you here that you do have the wisdom and the confidence that you can tap into within you at any moment to use the skills that you have to process emotions and, create what needs to be created and release what needs to be released. And so I'm also hearing from Spirit, whenever you're coming across this message, now is the time for you to really take action on prioritizing your emotional growth and healing. And whenever you're listening to this, whoever you are, you could be at any point on your spiritual journey. You may feel like you're just beginning to dabble in shadow work and emotional regulation, or you may feel like you've been doing it for quite some time and you're really stepping into this new timeline where things feel a lot lighter. Regardless of what it is, you know what it is you want to accomplish. You know why you want the things you want. You have a clear vision of the existence that you want to have. And if you think that you don't, you truly do. You just need to remember it and tap into it. But you are being blessed with these opportunities. And it's not just the opportunities you're being blessed with, but you're being blessed with the ability to recognize the opportunities, because it's that self-awareness that even puts you through the doorway, the pathway, enters you through that portal of actually doing that inner work and healing. And so you have a vision and you are ready to work towards it. And that may require some kind of logistical action steps, whatever it is that you're trying to manifest in your life, whether it's your relationships or your career or something more internal. But action also looks like recognizing emotional reactions and doing that real-time somatic work and somatic healing. And so that's the blessing that's being placed in front of you, this emotional work. These are the stepping stones that are there for you. And so Spirit wants you to recognize the power of transformation that you have at your fingertips. So what I'd like to do now is channel into some messages that are going to help us with our emotional needs. So we've spoken a lot about emotional processing and the somatic work and shadow work that we do. And the reason that's so important is because those emotions and that processing of those emotions that we want to become skilled in is serving as the signals about whether your basic emotional needs are being met. And so emotional needs are things like feeling secure, feeling like you have personal freedom, as well as a sense of belonging and connection and validation from others. And so what I'd like to do is channel into a few basic emotional needs today and pull some tarot cards and simply open ourselves to whatever guidance needs to come through for this collective from our angels and spirit guides. So first, I want to speak about connection and belonging. So for those who are trying to manifest some kind of relationship, whether it's within your community or your friendships, or whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's you're single and you're trying to manifest a relationship, maybe for a lot of this collective who are on the twin flame journey, there's some kind of reunion that you are seeking, which of course I always speak, twin flame or not, whenever we're speaking on external relationships, I always clarify that these messages are intended to speak on your inner work and not any kind of external outcomes. So whatever journey you're on, I hope that you find guidance and resonating messages that are going to put you on the path of what you need to do, because that's really all that you have, power over. But this idea of connection and belonging is crucial, because while we do so much inner work, and I'm seeing the Hermit in my mind's eye, that is completely valuable. I'm also seeing the Hierophant in my mind's eye. And I'm just seeing that for many of this collective, we spent a lot of time on our own, just us with our spirituality. And I feel for many of the collective, you're at this point in your life where you're ready to start attracting those aligned relationships. Again, whether it's community, friendships, or romantic. I'm hearing you've spent so much time alone, you're ready to move forward on your path, on your journey with others, and not just any other person, but people who are truly aligned, people who are soul aligned members of your soul community. And wow, we have the Ace of Cups coming out, as well as the Eight of Cups. So yeah, I really think that the King of Wands, I actually didn't notice that was right behind the Ace of Cups. So yeah, as it relates to our sense of community, I'm picking up on this new emotional beginning, which is, I'm loving that we have 2 cups cards flying out as we're talking about emotional needs. And in the context of community and sense of belonging, an Ace of Cups coming out is confirming to you that you are ready for this new beginning. And with the Eight of Cups, it may have required you to leave some friendships or romantic relationships or community members behind. And with the King of Wands, I love this balance to the water. And as I've mentioned in previous readings, the cups and the water element represents the divine feminine, and the wands or the fire element represents the divine masculine. And we speak in a lot of videos on this channel about the union of self, the union of your internal divine feminine and divine masculine. And of course, these are not linked to gender. These are just energies which we all have within us. And so I love when I get cups and wands cards coming out together, because that's the signal to me that we are achieving this balance of our internal divine feminine and internal divine masculine. And specifically with the King of Wands, I mean, this is such a charismatic, confident figure. This is leadership. So this is really you taking control of your life in the sense of making a decision, like our first oracle card that popped out, as to who you want to spend your time around. And the King of Wands does so in a very confident, like, you know what you want and you know what you want to spend your time doing. You know who you want to spend your time with versus not. And so I'm really loving these cards coming out, just confirming to you that you are approaching your relationships and social connections in a new, renewed way, both emotionally as well as in this more masculine action-taking way that's also that kind of fiery confidence of the King of Wands. So I would love to hear from you in the comments if this is resonating, if you want me to channel more into this collective journey. But I want to move on to another emotional need, which is about your autonomy and your independence. This is all about you, your need for freedom, personal choice. And, you know, as I said before, I saw the Hermit and the Hierophant in my mind's eye. And I do want to touch on this, because while I do feel like for many of the collective, we're kind of moving out of this Hermit phase, even when we shift and pivot into prioritizing our external relationships and connections more, there is still always going to be the importance of our own freedom, our own personal choice, especially when we're in a relationship. For the collective that is single or in separation with your twin flame, that is seeking a reunion, it is a significant life transition, a life change, when you go from only having yourself to nurture and care for, to then also having another person and a relationship to put your energy into. And so I want to pull some cards as to guidance about our autonomy and our independence on this journey, because even when we're in a relationship, we want to maintain a sense of what we desire and the decisions that we want to make to align with our values and goals. And of course, there's a synergy and a harmony that we want to achieve with both of these concepts. But let's see what we can pull about our sense of autonomy and the emotional need for freedom and independence. So we have the Four of Swords, which, yes, is definitely about the need for you to take time to rest. I mean, that's crucial throughout life. Only when you take that time to yourself to rest and reset and rejuvenate, I'm hearing to center yourself. That's an ongoing practice and habit that's going to benefit you as you seek to balance your relationships with your own sense of sovereignty. We're also getting the Six of Wands and the World. So definitely this balance that you're about to be achieving between your independence and your connections with others, in your relationships with others, this is something that you are going to achieve great success in. And I'm also hearing recognition, like people are going to see how balanced you are and how balanced you show up, both in your own self-care and self-nurturing and confident self-assuredness and self-trust and discernment, as well as how you show up in your relationships and how giving and loving you are and how you're able to balance these in such a beautiful way. People are going to recognize that and really look to you as an example. And then with the World, this is an incredibly powerful message about a huge achievement that's marking the end of a life cycle, the end of a chapter of your journey. It's a completion, and it's a sense of fulfillment and wholeness that you are achieving from this balance. So as you are hearing these messages, I really invite you to pause and reflect on how this feels to you, what this looks like even. Maybe take some time to visualize. What does that look like to you to have a life where you exist in this reality where you have meaningful relationships, romantic, friendship, community? The social connections that you keep are those that you care for and prioritize with great discernment. You take it really seriously in the sense of you take how you expend your energy very seriously, and not in like a heavy way, but in a way where you know what matters to you, you know what's important to you, and you act accordingly, because that is a level of alignment that really gets us in that magnetic state where we attract aligned relationships because we're aligned within ourselves. And, again, really tapping into that sense of belonging, that sense of knowing on a deep soul level that the people around you see and hear and value and understand you, and what that means to feel that sense of belonging, that sense of meaningful, intimate connection with others. And as you're visualizing this, to also envision that, when you come home from hanging out with your friends, or when you come home from a date with your partner, you also have your habits and routines and rituals, which I also talk about in a previous video, in place where you can rest and recover and reflect on how you feel. When you have positive emotions come up, when you have negative emotions come up, you immediately do the work to consider them and reflect on them. And maybe you have a journaling practice. Maybe you have a meditation practice where you can really take ample time to process and reflect and just learn about yourself, learn about your experiences and how your experiences are making you feel. That inward, internal time with yourself. that kind of nurturing and the kind of person you are when you gift yourself that time, the kind of balanced person and the way that you show up in such a balanced way, really visualize like what that feels like. And many of this may feel familiar to you, depending on where you're at on your journey. Maybe you feel like you're really close to achieving this and you feel like you do have good systems in place. And I would love to hear from you in the comments what's resonating or what sticks out to you here. But if this feels really far from you, like maybe you're unsure about some of your friendships or your connections, or you feel like you're not giving yourself enough time with yourself, I really encourage you to take this visualization time and really tap into what that feels like. And I also am thinking I want to do more of these kind of visualizations and pauses within the readings to give us kind of like a built-in meditation while we're doing this reading. So even if you're multitasking, you can take a moment and really integrate the messages that are coming through. I think a lot of times when we are consuming content, it definitely plants a seed. We do receive the message, but sometimes taking a pause and allowing the message to really seep in can help it to take stronger root. So let me know if that's something that you enjoy. I think I will start to do this in more readings. I think it will really provide value and help us to really take in the messages that are coming through. So with that being said, let's move forward onto some other emotional needs. So I want to speak on purpose and meaning because this is a huge one. So this kind of emotional fulfillment that we get from having a sense of purpose in life, having direction through our goals and through the meaningful activities that we take part in, and deriving a sense of fulfillment in life through those things that bring us purpose and meaning. So we have the Five of Cups, Two of Wands, and the Emperor. So I'm really picking up on this story of the collective where with the Five of Cups, you may have made a lot of mistakes in your past that you've learned from. But again, just like we say our triggers are a gift and a blessing, so are our mistakes. And sometimes with the mistakes we make or the failures or loss or grief that we endure, it can feel like there's no hope. And with the Five of Cups, this represents, the three cups are overturned and spilled, and the two cups behind them, they're not able to see, their back is towards them. So with the Two of Wands, I'm really picking up on this reflective time where you're looking forward, but you're also taking that moment of reflection to recognize all that you learned from what you previously considered to be mistakes or failures. And through that journey is where you step into that Emperor embodiment. And the reason this is such an important, relevant part of your journey is because through your mistakes, and I'm hearing the live and learn that we experience, you are reaching this Emperor, respected, wise figure that has come so far and is now so close to their dream life. In many ways, they already are in their dream life because that's all kind of a perspective and manifestation mindset that we talk about a lot on this channel. But it's like you have gone through all of the so-called mistakes and failures to lead you to this Emperor embodiment. Like you couldn't have made it here without the exact journey that you went on. And through that journey, through the struggles and hardships, the loss, the grief, and through that kind of reset with the Two of Wands, the recalibration, the way that you begin again after every loss, right? Like you look into the horizon, you start to plan, you start to decide how you're going to overcome this. That's kind of the story I'm getting with the Five of Cups and the Two of Wands. It's like there's some kind of loss, but then there's a reset where you continue to move forward, you continue to plan what comes next. And you do this in cycles of growth as you get into a higher and higher frequency on your path, which leads you to the Emperor. And this is crucial for the purpose and the meaning that you've been able to get in touch with. It's that soul path that has led you to this soul-aligned sense of fulfillment. So Spirit is just encouraging you to continue moving forward in your goals and your dreams. And that is going to get you closer and closer to your purpose. It's going to get you feeling that sense of fulfillment, that sense of meaningful contribution. My cat is confirming. It's going to get you into that sense of fulfillment and meaningful contribution in a stronger and stronger way as you go through these ebbs and flows of your life journey on this life path. So again, I would love to know what resonates with you and what emotional needs have been really important to you on this time of your life and on the path you're on right now. So I'm going to leave the reading here. I thank you so much for being here, being a part of this collective, and for listening today. I would love to hear from you in the comments what resonated, any other requests or types of readings or videos you'd like me to make. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.